All right, Josh Cox, man, I'm happy to have you here. And you're one of the guys who's been through my 31 day program. You're in the Brotherhood. You're wearing the shirt. So
Yeah,
glad you're here. How you
I
doing?
represent.
Everything good?
Yeah, everything's great.
Good. So you and I have gotten a chance to spend time together. Aside from being in the class together, being in the Brotherhood, you've come down here to South Florida for a retreat where we spent several days together. We've trained jujitsu together. We've worked out, meals together, listen to speakers. So we've really gotten to share and get to know each other quite a bit. And I think anybody who knows you will immediately have a topic in mind that is big. Um, and you're more than just this, what I'm about to bring up. I mean, and we're going to get to that. But you did something kind of interesting as a young man in when you were like middle school, high school, some college, I think, right? You threw a javelin.
Yes, I
You-
did.
You're the only javelin thrower I've ever met. What is that like?
Man, it's a blast. It's a really technical sport that you have to, really learn how to manipulate your body in a certain way to get the javelin to go as far as you want it to go, and it takes a lot of discipline and mental strength to know that, like, hey, even if your form can be perfect, but maybe the wind's bad that day and you just can't get it to where you want to go. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I selfishly enjoyed it more than other sports because there was no coach or referee that could tell me I wasn't doing the best. My if my throw was further, then I was the best that day. So that's what I really enjoyed about it. It was very just like to the point. Like, no, I mean, I threw 5 feet further than you. Like, I was better that day. So that's kind of what I liked about it. But
Yeah, no teammate
yeah,
to let you down.
yeah, and no coach to be like, well, he's the better pitcher. It's like, or no, or he's the better, left tackle, or just whatever it is. It's like you could just. No, I mean, I was better or I wasn't better. Like I got third that day or whatever it was. It was like I enjoyed that aspect about it. So it drove my competitiveness and had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, it's all on you.
Yeah.
Um, is what's the average, let's call it high school or college, what's the average height for these javelin throwers?
How tall they are?
Yeah.
Um, I think that like high school, it's going to go all over the place, but once you get to college, I'd say you're going to be between 5'10" to 6'2", because that just gives you the best like advantages as far as like your leverage on being able to throw. You're going to see most of your throwers are going to be taller for the javelin, but then, like with discus and shot put, they might be taller but also bulkier, and so and I think that it gives you a competitive advantage because you have longer arms and longer legs to generate more power into the actual throw. So
So 5'10" to 6'2", how tall are you?
I'm 6'4".
6'4", you're a
So
big guy.
yeah.
You're on the high side of
Yeah,
that.
more of the elite javelin throwers were taller, even though the probably arguably one of the best javelin thrower to ever live was 6'2". So Jan Zellini, he was 6'2", but he threw. I don't know if it still holds. I'd have to like research to find this, but I knew like so we measure like track as in meters. So 90 meters is roughly 280 feet, I think, or roughly around that. I might be completely wrong, but I think it's around 280 to
That makes
290.
sense.
Um, he threw over 90 meters in competition than every other javelin thrower had ever thrown over 90 meters combined.
Wow.
If that gives you like an indicator of how good he was. Like if he had more 90-meter throws than every other javelin thrower threw together collectively.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Any other sports as a kid? Any like at a higher level in high school, did you play anything else?
Yeah, I played so I was three sports. I did football, basketball, and track in high school. And then I got offered to walk on for football in college and got a scholarship for javelin. So I ended up taking the scholarship and throwing in college.
Yeah,
So
very good. What do you think playing sports has done for you as a man, as a father, as a business owner?
I think it taught me a lot about how big your mental perspective on everything can really affect how you perform. And so, if I'm dwelling on my last throw, or I'm dwelling on, maybe a bad shot, or maybe I missed a block or whatever it was, for sports wise. If I bring that into the next play, then I don't do as well because I'm dwelling on the past. And so if you really train your mental self to set that aside each time, and each play, each throw, each experience is going to be a new experience, and it's on you to make it happen or not. Having that mental ability to just kind of set aside what's happened in the past and continue moving forward really can benefit you and your business and your family and your relationships and everything. So that's what I think that was a big takeaway for me. And then just discipline in general of like having to train for something, every day, doing kind of the same monotonous things every day where in like, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days, but you still keep pushing and you just keep getting better each day every day.
In sports, you have a coach reminding you to work hard, right? Even if you're working
Mhm.
really hard, they're still on you. But in business, that doesn't exist, right? When you go into your business, what's keeping you motivated to keep pushing forward?
My family, like knowing that like I have 8 children. Well, I have 7 children about to have my eighth child here in December. And so like knowing that if I don't go perform, if I don't make things happen in business, then like, we may not can't eat, I mean, sometimes it's probably an exaggeration, but like, it's kind of the mental thing I bring into is like, hey, like if I'm not going and making sure that things are getting done, like, I don't want my family to be homeless. I don't want us to be out on the street. And that's probably an exaggeration, but that's what motivates me is just keeping sure that I'm providing for my family and that we're not going to be not going to be needing anything. We can provide all of our needs.
I like those exaggerations. I take it even farther. If I'm trying to lift a weight, I tell myself if I don't lift this, my kids are going to die. That's how far I take it just to get motivated.
Yeah,
Where I'm
yeah,
swimming laps, I say if I can't do two more laps in my pool, they all die.
yeah, yeah.
Those exaggerations help us.
Hey, well, there's a guy that he would use. I forgot what kind of bar it is, but it's like one of those specialty bars that he squats with. And it's like the way it's set up, like you can't really like bail out. Like it's not like a regular barbell where you can like, let it go and be done, and get out of the way. And like so one of the guys was telling me about it and said like, well, what do you do like if you can't do the weight? And he was like, I don't have that choice. Like I'll die. And so he's like,
Wow.
that's his motivator to like make sure he's squatting it. And I
Yeah.
was like, hey, I guess, if you don't give yourself an option, that's gonna really motivate you to get that rep in. So
Yeah. We have a lot of options, I think, nowadays because life is easy. We could
yeah.
go to work or we could sit on the couch. We could relax. We could tell society, our wife, anybody. We could make a lot of excuses, and
Hmm.
excuses seem to be acceptable nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So let's jump into it kind of ties in. Kids make
Yeah.
excuses, adults make excuses. You have a life that you must not be able to make a lot of excuses. There's 8 kids there, and you're how old?
32.
And so explain how this happens. How do you have 8 kids?
So we have 8 children through adoption. And then so we have six of our children were adopted, and then two are biological. One is still bacon. The other one is 1 year old now. Um, so my wife and I, when we were engaged, we started to get introduced to what's called foster care, and we didn't know what it was at the time. And we just met a great lady who was just like really pushed us um, to explore it and see what it would be about. And like, we were at church and we were working in children's ministry together. And one day she just like handed us these twin car seats. I remember they were like tattered and beaten up and said, hey, here's your new family. And we were like, what are you talking about? And then shortly behind her, this mom and dad with two twin babies come in, and once we saw them, we kind of knew, okay, this is what she's talking about, that we're gonna try to come alongside them and help them not get into foster care, because that was kind of her passion, was to prevent children from getting into foster care. And so sometimes just parents just need a little help, need a little guidance. And so we were young and like felt called to do something more than just like have a white picket fence life. Like we wanted to really like try to make a difference. And so excuse me, we went went with his family and worked with them and like kept their kids and helped them out and really tried to get them on the right path. And like, thankfully, they never ended up in foster care. Like their kids are doing good. And, not probably not to the standard like you and I would want, but I think, to just about their best ability with what they're able to, really accomplish just with, just growing up in different circumstances. You just don't have the same standards for yourself, and you can only push people, to a certain point if they don't want to. Um, but the kids are taken care of, and their needs are met, which is good.
And those are kids that those two twins in that first time, you
Mhm.
took care of them for how long?
Couple of years. I mean, I'd say 2 years we were involved in their life until we finally moved. I moved for work, and so it just we still kept them from time to time, and then we got our own children, and so that's kind of what we we became foster parents once we moved after that. And we got our first child in April of 2017. And so we still kept them from time to time. And then we got, two more kids in August of 2017. So we went from 0 kids to 1 kid to a few months later having 3 kids. And so that just once we had, 3 kids, it just got a lot tougher. And so it was harder to like get them to go pick them up, and like, we'd have to bring 2 cars because we didn't have one car that could fit all of them. And so, it got a little bit trickier once we had more, just more children to fit into a vehicle. Um, and so sometimes Claire would just, go by herself and then come back and bring them. So it was 2 years pretty heavily invested, and then like probably about 6 months to 8 months of like kind of sporadic. And then now we just check in with them and just see how they're doing. And probably about once a week, just my wife will text and just see how they're doing. And they're in school now, and doing fairly well, so that's good.
And without the example of those kids specifically, it's just in general, does it happen where people give up their kids for a while, then they get them back and it works out?
Very, very rarely from my experience. The sad part is that for Louisiana, it's not like, I'm in Louisiana, you're in Florida, somebody else might be in a different state. Each state is a little bit different on how it really transpires. For Louisiana, we have what's called the Department of Children and Family Services. It might be called CPS where you're at. It might be called something completely different depending on where you're at. Um, but they have what's called policies that they have in place that aren't like law, but they're policies of what they go by. And so those policies change, regularly. And whatever those policies are what their guidelines on what they do to remove. And the sad thing is that those policies standards are so high that I find I'm like, man, I can't believe that these kids might even go back, is because of like how egregious things have to be for things to happen. Like it's not even like just abuse anymore. It's not like neglect. It's not um, oh, they, didn't pay their power bill, and so that, they went and removed their kids until they could, be able to support themselves and pay the power bill. Like it's excessive abuse, it's excessive neglect. Like there's the police officer that I know, he told me that they were trained, like they can go into a house and there's no food in the cabinets, there's no food in the fridge. They can't find any sort of like, food in the house, right? But there's one candy bar in the trash can. They're like, okay, well they must have eaten something recently. And then they have
Regardless
to
of
figure
whether
out,
regardless of whether the kid ate that or the parent.
yep, that's the training, is that if there's food in the trash can, then they don't have grounds to remove.
Wow.
So that's the reality, and of just what's going on in your backyard that you may not even know about. And so it's that we got into it thinking like, man, this is great, like we can come alongside these birth parents and really help them like turn their lives around and like get their kids back. And we were like, oh, like if this doesn't work out, we can just never do it again. And it just quickly we realized the need, and we just were devastated and really motivated at the same time to try to make a difference. And what that turned out to be was that we ended up, I mean, we fostered, I lost count after 50. We've had 50 children in our home.
Oh.
Whether 50 or more, like more than 50 is what I mean. And so, that might be for 24 hours, it might be for 24 months. We have known, six of them forever. Like they're now our daughters. And that's just the reality is that a lot of these kids are getting adopted out of the system. And there's not always a home to that wants to adopt them. And so sometimes the kids just linger in the system. And that's where my wife works really hard to find those children a home that they can be a part of a family. And with she works with a nonprofit that's her job is to really support and facilitate connecting families that are wanting to adopt and getting these children that are lingering in the foster system a place to be a home.
And it's so, I've met some great people who've adopted kids, and they've always said it was a hard process, it was a long process. So they do all this checking, I suppose, the
Hmm.
bureaucracy, right, to make sure it's the right parent. But it's so easy to, if you are the actual birth parent, you could keep them even when you're mistreating them,
Hmm.
right? Is there any chance they can speed up that process to get kids adopted into good families? Is that a problem?
Yeah, I mean it's 100%. The way I look at it, like, and my wife and I talk about this with, I know your faith, but like I don't know everybody else's faith, but like our faith, Genesis tells us that there's going to be pain in childbirth. Like God made that a part of the fall of humanity is that, hey, your childbirth is now going to be amplified. And so, that's the kind of, I don't think that's going to not happen with adoption either. Like there's pain, there's loss and gain all in adoption. Like even though it's an exciting thing to have adoption, there's also loss that happens through that. And um, sometimes there's adoption where it's surrendered, where the birth parent's like, hey, I'm surrendering my rights, I'm giving this kid up. That's usually like your agency adoptions where these agencies will get in contact with, birth mothers for whatever reason that are wanting to put their kids up for adoption. Um, in foster care and in my experience, that's not the case. It's what's called termination of parental rights, which is where we go into a court of law and the court determines that this birth parent is not a suitable parent and they terminate the rights to that birth parent for the child. And that's forcibly. It's not, they're not surrendering their rights. It's like their rights are taken at that point. And so it's a, you know, it's a process because you have to go through the court system and I get aggravated with it because there's some days where your court-appointed attorney doesn't show up and you get continued for, weeks or months because they just didn't show up to work sometimes. Um, so, I don't know what the solution is that. I know that Louisiana, at least, we're working towards within a year that there needs to be a permanency, established for the child that's in care. So
And where's the kid during that time?
So the kind of the way the system works is, let's say there's a report made, they go and investigate, and maybe that takes a few days to a week, and then they determine, okay, this child does need to be removed. Then that child will be removed from the birth parent and then placed into a foster home. And so then after there's what they call a 72-hour hearing, and so after 72 hours, they will have a hearing on the case and determine like, hey, did we need to do this or was this premature or did this not need to be done? And so all the birth parents will be able to show up to that. And each birth parent's appointed an attorney, the child's appointed an attorney, and then you have the district attorney who's there for the state. And so then there's like a court hearing on that. They kind of go back and forth to determine yes or no if this kid needs to stay in care. If they determine yes, then the child will stay in that foster home unless they are to remove them. Sometimes what happens is a foster home will take a placement for just like a few nights until they find like a more permanent placement. Like we've done that before, where it's like, hey, we got we can do maybe 3 nights, but we can't, commit to long term for this if it's going to be longer than, a week or something. So they might they may move, but they stay in what's called foster care. Like the state will take custody of the child. And so that custody is now awarded to the state, and then they give it to the foster parent doesn't have custody, but the state has custody, and so the foster parent is like the guardian of that child, like as
Are
far as
there
like taking care of the child.
are there still orphanages at all?
Um, not really. No, I mean there's group homes, but there's not like orphanages where they have like where you hear about where they got like 15 babies in cribs in the home. Like they're putting those children in foster homes. Now foster home might have 6 babies,
Mm,
but so for Louisiana the limit is 6 children in your home. And that's your kids or foster kids. So it's not like
uh,
6 foster kids, it's just 6 children in your home. And so once we hit 6, we're technically tapped out. We can't do
so how do you're about to be what, 8?
yeah, we'll be at 8.
Oh,
So
because they're adopted now.
yeah, so they're adopted and everything, but we still can't have any children in our home, but they've put them in our home before. They do waivers and different things because
Yeah, when there's too much supply, right?
yeah, there's
Yeah.
too many kids for how many homes there are, and so they end up in homes that have more than kids because they just don't have the place to put them. So
And do parents, because I think I've heard of this, or I could be wrong, it could just be a myth. Do
Mhm.
parents get paid to have foster kids in their home?
Yeah, so foster parents do get paid, like they call it like a reimbursement for the child.
Hmm.
And there's a little bit of misconception towards that as well, that some people think you're making like a ton of money. Um, a counter question would be, how much do you think it costs to board a dog? If you're aboard a dog overnight, how much do
It's
you think it
expensive.
costs?
It's expensive. I've never done it, but I've heard neighbors, friends of mine say that they do it, and it's very expensive.
Yeah, so here in Louisiana, on average, is about $35 a night to board a dog. For the Louisiana reimbursement rate is $15 a night
For a child?
for a child.
Wow. Yeah, you could buy them a soup and a sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's to cover food, that's to cover clothes, that's to cover school supplies, that's to
Wow.
cover any extracurricular activities, that's to cover Christmas presents.
Wow.
All that stuff's supposed to be covered with that $15 a day.
Yeah, it's not a good business.
Yeah. So it's not, yeah, you're not making money doing this type of thing. You're getting semi reimbursed. I mean, just daycare alone, it doesn't cover it
Yeah.
but you can get into a state daycare where they pay the daycare separately. But I mean, if the like what we've been running into problems with is a lot of people can't take kids that aren't, 4 or 5 because they don't have a daycare that is state ran and they can't afford to, just shell out, 150, $200 a week to put them in daycare. So,
And how did it happen that anybody looks at your family picture and knows that your kids are adopted, right? How did it
Mhm.
happen? You have a blonde wife and
Yeah,
she's white, you're white,
yeah.
and you have how many black kids?
What we got? Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5. Uh, African. Yeah, we got 5 black kids. So,
And then one white kid that is also
Mhm.
adopted, and then
Yes.
one that's biologically yours and one
Yeah.
on the way.
Mhm.
That must does it you're in Louisiana. Does it stir up a bunch of conversations?
Man, it's funny. Like when we first started, man, we got so many comments. Like more so my wife. Like when she'd go out and about, it was like, people just didn't have a filter, and you're just like, man, like. But yeah, we've gotten plenty of comments. Like how'd you get those kids? Kind of things like that, and it's one of those things that you got to kind of like prepare yourself how you're gonna like answer those questions. So, um, we're just like, man, we're foster parents, and but if we have the kids around, it's kind of hard because you don't want to be like, like, oh yeah, my kid's adopted, and like make a big deal out about it. You're just like, oh, these are my girls, and like sometimes we've come up with little funny things like, um, my wife would be like, no, I just like men, and just like just like making it sound like, which is not the case, but just making it sound like she's had all of them and just, maybe had and
And why for you guys, why did in all of those cases you chose girls?
so it just that kind of just happened, right? We our first placement, which is our daughter that we adopted, she came. And then we were just going to do one, and we were going to be kind of done with that. Like, not done, but just like, hey, we're just going to do one to start and just see how it goes. And then our friends that we made throughout, like doing the classes and everything, because it's not like you just go tell them you're going to be a foster parent and you're like, oh, here's a kid, like
Yeah.
it's not that kind of situation. It's like it's a 6 to 8 month process, depending on how fast they do it, where you do classes, you get certifications, they come to your home, they determine that your home's a safe place, all these things. It takes about 6 to 8 months. And so through that process, we made some friends like within that, and they like she called us and was like, "Hey, there's two more girls that are going to be on their way to your house," and we're like, "What?" And, but what happens is for us at least is we have a Facebook page that just for foster parents. So it's like a group where it's just like, like our area's foster parents have access to. There's an admin that like fields it and, determines if you're a foster parent or not, kicks you out if you, are not certified anymore for whatever reason, lets you in if you are certified, all this stuff. And so what they'll do occasionally is like, what happens is a kid comes into care, the foster care starts calling around like, hey, like, or it's home development. Home development starts calling around, hey, would you take you know, a 7-year-old black female? Like, yes or no? And that's all the information you get. Like, is, you might like maybe you have a little bit more information, but typically you get, their age, their gender, and their race, and that's it. And so if they can't find a home with that, what ends up happening is that people like somebody will post it in the Facebook page and say, hey, and so what happened was there's a 3-year-old African American and a 13-month-old African American, and like they couldn't place them. And the lady, like our friend, she like called up my wife and was like, hey, like I told them that y'all take them. And we were like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, no, like we're drowning with one. Like we don't want to take two more.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy that that happened because, it's two of my daughters. And like it was, I could have easily just said no and been like, we're not doing this and changed the whole course of my life.
And what happens to these kids if you say no? Where do they end up? How do they
They'll
end up?
stay, if they can't find a foster home, they'll stay in the state building. And so they might stay overnight in the state building. And, like there will be a caseworker that will stay with them. They'll put them on a chair or a couch if they're lucky, if they have a couch available. And then they'll sleep there until they can get them placed. And so sometimes they'll put them up in hotels if they have that ability. But typically they don't have that ability to always put them up in hotels because the budget is what the budget is. So if they don't have the budget for it, then they just stay in the state building here.
Are there, when I think of my children, I've got four of them, I think of hugging them and kissing them and just loving them. Um, I assume when kids are bouncing around foster care, they may not be getting that, right? They may
Yeah,
not be getting that connection with an adult who loves them and cares for them.
yeah,
Oh.
absolutely. I mean, they definitely didn't get it from their birth parents. You know, it's sad, but sometimes or it's not sometimes, it's every time. Physical abuse is better than neglect. And that's weird to think about, but with physical abuse, at least they were interacted with. With neglect, they weren't interacted with. And
Mm.
so they struggle to handle that like interaction. And so like, they're very like, push back against physical touch or anything like that if you're trying to give them a hug or anything. If they're neglected, they're hard to communicate with because of that. And so, and then you think about kind of the nuance to it as well as like if they go into a foster home, I've heard it before, like, oh, I just can't give them back, if that were to happen, if they were to like be foster parents, I wouldn't want to give them back. Well, you can't be selfish being a foster parent because it's not about you, it's about that child.
And do you
And
give them back to other foster parents because they're bouncing around, or back to the original parents?
if you give them back to like they're talking about giving them back to the original parents when they say that. And and for us, that's only happened one time, if that gives you any indication of like how kind of rare that is. Just in our given experience, like we've only given them back to the birth parent once. Now we have friends that have given them back to them, multiple times, and then they end up with them. But if you but what happens, like in my opinion, is that those people, people are putting up a guard, right? Like I don't want to get too attached and then have to give them back. And so what does that do to that kid, right?
They
If
don't
you
give
have
them
a guard
100%.
up, right? If you have this person that's supposed to be your safety, like this person's taking care of me, this person's not abusing me, this person's feeding me, and what I think is love, they're gonna learn, they're gonna indirectly learn, okay, this is what somebody who's loving does, and like, but the adult is having a guard up, and so that really like, makes it a challenge for that kid to learn what relationships are like, and so, um, I have to constantly remind myself is like, it's not about me, it's about this kid. I need to give this kid, my all, and I think I posted it before in our group chat with the Brotherhood, like, we had a little boy recently, and I knew he was going to go back, and this was the case where I was talking about, where the one case that we had that went back, and um, so a big part of me wanted to put up a guard and know and not get attached, but I knew that wasn't what was best for him. So it's
Yeah,
really
because what you can do, how old was that boy?
three.
3. So that's a young age, but I don't know, deep down, he felt something, right? If you
Hmm.
treat him really well, and hopefully that helps him know right from wrong later, right? They
Yeah.
And if it's a kid that's even older and you can really explain things to him, even more reason. We
Hmm.
had a situation where we took care of a kid for 3 months last summer, or maybe it was 2 summers now. And so for the summer, we had him, and we did everything we could, right? Signed him up for jujitsu. My wife, Jessica, would walk with him miles every day, and they'd talk the entire time. For the first time in his life, he was getting attention and he was eating
Hmm.
healthy. He lost inches on his waist. And this is a kid who was only, I don't know, 8 years old. It's for
Hmm.
that age to lose inches on your waist over one summer is a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, and and I always think, well, he went right back, right? After the summer was over, he went back to his bad situation. But I always wonder if somehow we were able to impact and plant a seed in his head that, oh, that is how I remember that parenting should be done. So that hopefully when he's a man, there's that one little bit that he could explore and go learn about becoming a better parent, hopefully.
Yeah. No, I absolutely think that, if you can influence them for 24 hours or 24 months, like it's going to have an impact. Like I don't think it returns void, Like I don't think you're going to put that effort into the kid if you're truly giving it all you can, and it's going to return void. But yeah, I think it's like what you're saying. It might not show up, when they go back. It might show up later in life, when they're older, and like, maybe you get a call from that kid and he remembers that summer and just is like, tells you 20 years down the road, hey, I just want to let you know like how much of an impact that had on me. And so,
Yeah. Yeah, that
uh,
would be great. I would love to know
yeah.
that that happened. Um, how do your girls see all of this? What are their comments on? I know now at this point they're just used to it. Those are our sisters, those
Mhm.
are our parents. But how's that conversation around the house? Does it happen? Do they talk about what their life could have been like? Do they remember their original parents?
Yeah. So, some of them do, some of them don't. Some were too young to really to know and comprehend. Our oldest, she remembers. She had to go through a lot of counseling, and because she just experienced so much trauma, and she doesn't talk about it as much because she just doesn't want to like go back to that. But like from time to time, she'll start like kind of asking questions, and so like when those times happen, we really try to like conversate with her and really help her work through it. Um, our other daughter, our next oldest, like we actually drove her here recently to, actually I think last Saturday, we drove her to where she was taken from, and showed her, because like, we've just been having problems with her like lying and stealing,
Mhm.
and And so, I've kind of attributed to it like not her not being appreciative. And that was one of the things that we actually, my wife has a really good relationship with her birth mom, which is, just such a blessing. We don't have that with all of them, but for this one in particular, we do. And she's just really, the birth mom's really matured and is like, hey, like, I don't think it's going to be good for her to meet me. So I don't, I think we need to keep that,
Wow.
until she's older. And like that just, it's funny because it's like because she said that, it's like I think that, she's mature enough to meet her, right? Like I'm not worried about the birth mom. It's like, okay, what is best for Rose and just deciding at what point in time would that be the best thing. Um, and so anyway, so she said like I think she's just an ungrateful piece of crap. She said. Um, and so we were like, okay, well, cool. And she's like, here's where I used to live. Like, y'all should take her there and show her what things could have been. And so we did. And so like I'm hoping that will have an impact on her and just like I think it's gonna take her longer to process it. She's only 8, so I mean, it's hard, it takes kids longer to process things than an adult. And so um
So hopefully that something there hit her like, wow, things could be really bad.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Like I live in a nice house. I have,
yeah,
I have all the, I can eat whatever meal. Like, when like I'm fed at, 3 meals a day plus snacks. Like, I mean, like I got a good life here. And
yeah.
um, so that's, we're hopeful for that. Like we talk about it openly. Like, I mean, it's hard not to, right? Because like not everybody looks the same. So it's not like we got a house full of white kids and, can be like, oh no, y'all aren't adopted. It's like we have to address it. And
Yeah,
so we've addressed it from day one. And,
good.
um, and so like whenever we have our newborn, we were telling them like, or a 1-year old now, but hey, like, this one, like she's coming from mommy's tummy, but we have a saying that we say that y'all came from mommy's heart is what we
Mm,
is how we put it.
that's
And
nice.
and so like you have a tummy mommy and you have, your mommy. And so they'll ask about, their tummy mommies and then the older ones know that they're their birth moms and kind of understand what that is now. And so and we try to, do our best to facilitate those conversations and just, really answer any questions that they have. Um and be able to like just kind of take that veil off of it so it's not just some,
Mystery.
yeah, like it's just like, hey, like I'll answer it to the best I can, like I may not know every answer, and the answer to every question you have, but I can answer it the best I can. So,
And are people who consider fostering, should they be scared about getting older kids because maybe they come with a lot of bad habits?
so there's challenges with older kids. Um, they're they're different and can be harder. For us, it was really hard because we had a 13-year-old boy and we had, 4 little girls, and so um, I think if we were older and more mature and like maybe had raised a teenager before, we would have done a lot better. We ended up that's still like the hardest decision I've ever had to make in my life was to have him, moved. And it got not to make an excuse, but it just got to the point where I didn't feel comfortable not being home when he was home. So um it just that when it got to that point, I knew that like, hey, we need to get him into a different home because I don't want him to make a bad decision and, regret it for the rest of his life. And I don't want to have to regret whatever decision he makes for the
You
rest of my
just
life.
did that on a feeling, or you saw things going in the wrong direction?
No, I mean, day one, there was things going in the wrong direction. We really tried to work with him. We kept him for 6 months. I mean, he was stealing, lying, like, like probably stole like $2,400, $2,500 worth of like just stuff from me.
Whoa.
Um, like was bringing knives to school, and all this was a trauma response, right? Like I can see that now. But at the time I was freaking out and I was just like thinking, he
Yeah.
was
What's
trying to,
next?
yeah, he was trying to like, plot to kill me or something or kill somebody. And I see that that wasn't the case now, but I've matured a lot. I was 25, I guess.
Wow.
So like,
Wow.
I mean, that's like. a lot for a 25-year-old to try to raise a 13-year-old boy with trauma. So,
Plus the girls you already had.
yeah, plus I was drowning with, four girls. So it was a tough time, but
How
you
many
know,
kids are there out there that need this, that are in the foster system?
so nationwide there's roughly 391,000 in care, like just each year.
And then
Um,
there's what, one, two, 300,000 that need it that we don't know about, maybe?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, because like when I'm telling you like there's 391,000 in care, that's the ones that like, you know, extreme abuse, extreme neglect, like haven't been fed in days and are or weeks and are malnutrient, nutrient
Wow.
deficiency. So um, it's not because of the strap of this, it's just like what you're saying, supply and demand. So because of the demand is so high versus the supply of homes for them to be in, they've like just increased the standards of being put into care to combat that.
Years ago, right before the crash in '08 with real estate, we bought a house pre-construction in a beautiful neighborhood, and and then we all started moving in, closing on the houses, and then the economy crashed and things started happening. Like people tried to rent them, they'd leave them vacant, they couldn't rent them, they couldn't sell them. So we got in this beautiful neighborhood with 201 homes gated. We got squatters, and
Mhm.
one of those was actually a renter next door to us, and she kind of looked like trouble, but what could we just assuming. Quickly, we found out she was trouble, and she had a bunch of kids, and those kids were unattended. I mean, they just looked hungry. They looked dirty. They always had snots in their nose. A little one was in a diaper that every time you pass by them or they passed by the front of the house, it was or playing on the side of the house, you could smell the kid was pooped
Mhm.
always.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, what do you do? What do you do in this situation? I have no idea. We had one kid and one on the way of our own. And I remember the owner of that house came over and told me, these people don't pay me rent. They've done this and that. One day I looked out the window and her and her husband were breaking the lock off the electrical box that I don't know how it works, but some lock was placed there because they weren't paying their bill. So they didn't pay rent, they didn't pay electricity, it got shut off, and they were there trying to break some sort of lock. Eventually, the cops came to my house and started asking me questions because one of the little girls who was school age and went to school with my son was not showing up to school. So they asked questions. And then after that, I didn't see him again. So I imagine that these people can bounce around in the system, right? And
Yeah.
and stay under the radar.
Yeah. Once the investigations don't follow county lines,
Oh, wow.
so once if the report was made and whatever county you're in, and then they move counties, then it dies.
There's a miscommunication there, right? It just starts over.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So there would have to be another report made in that specific county on that family for them to go investigate it further.
Wow.
It's just jurisdiction issues or whatever it is. Like it, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure I wonder if they stay under the radar with, I don't know, a fake birth certificate at each school or who knows.
Yeah. I mean, there's just like it's like you said, there's just not a lot of communication. Like I mean, like we have birth certificates with new names on them, but the Social Security cards still have the old names on them, and because all that stuff doesn't communicate, like so you have to like go and get all that changed, and it's a hassle.
Yeah, of course, of
So I've
course.
had it changed for four of my daughters. I had to get them new Social Security numbers because filing for taxes, like birth parents were still filing them under their, like, and they filed first. And so whoever it's
Oh
first
boy.
come, first serve. And so then they're saying like, well, this was already filed. And so, we're flagging yours and auditing you. And I was like, well, I can prove you. I got the kids. I don't know how you, I
Yeah,
don't know what
you
you want, but I can
photographs.
send you pictures, so,
Yeah, come over.
um,
So,
so I ended up getting their numbers changed so that we didn't have that issue. So,
good. They don't have
yeah.
access to it. So I hear people with one child saying a lot of things about how busy they are, how complicated it is, oh, so much. And then when I tell them, well, we have four kids, and we had two in diapers, and then those two got a little bit bigger, still in elementary school. And we had two more, and they were in diapers at the same time, and we handled it. We don't think it was too crazy. I think we did that with systems in place and order and discipline. How about you? Because that's a whole new level. You're about to hit
Hmm.
8. How do you
Yeah.
do this? What's the day to day like?
A lot of structure, a lot of routine, making sure that the kids know what their responsibilities are and that they execute those responsibilities. We really strive to make our kids like self-sufficient, and it's kind of hard, when they're younger, but then as it pays off when they get older, so if you stick to it, my two oldest like are very self-sufficient. And so like they even they're my oldest is 10, my next oldest is 8, and they're both doing laundry. And so they'll, like wash it, dry it, fold it, put their sisters in, wash it, dry it, put it in their room for their sisters to put it up.
Wow.
And it's getting to the point where I don't even have to tell them, they just kind of do it. And so like
Wow.
right now I'm still having to kind of remind them like, hey, you need to, to wash your, clothes and get them clean. So you got them. And like
And
now
that's
they're kind
just
of getting to the point.
from day one to them, that's just normal. You do that.
Yeah. They don't know any different. That's how they live life. So then like
Man,
they do great,
they're gonna think the world is so weak when they get out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like last night, like I was just smiling because, um, we're like cleaning up after dinner was a nightmare when my oldest was like 6, right? It was like, because we had like 6 kids and they're, 6 was our oldest. Um, and so now it's actually like not that bad. Like we can get it done in about 15, 20 minutes because each one like I can give each one a task and they go do it. And then like, I'm sitting there washing dishes because it's a little bit harder for them to do that. So I'll wash dishes and I'll kind of turn around, just make sure they're still vacuuming, they're still walking down the table, they're still, picking up anything that's left over. They're bringing me the dirty dishes. I'm, getting them cleaned up, and then they're like they'll dry them and pick them up. And so like, we just got like a system, and
Man,
it's like
how about how many bedrooms you have?
one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine.
Wow, that's a big
Yeah.
house. How many bathrooms?
5.
Wow. You need a lot of bathrooms, especially as they're
Yeah.
going to get older and they're girls.
Yeah. Yeah. hmm
That's going to
Yeah,
be some fights.
we got a Jack and Jill. So there's 4 rooms upstairs that both share a bathroom, and it's like Jack and Jill style where they kind of
Meet in
combine.
the middle.
And they each have their own sink, and then the like shower and toilet has its own door.
Oh,
So
good.
like one can be, going to the bathroom, shower and bathing. The other one can be getting ready for school or brushing their
Good.
teeth or whatever it is. So
Yeah, you don't have those
um,
bottlenecks.
yeah, so it kind of keeps them where they can be. Everybody can be doing something in the bathroom, but not everybody can be bathing, but everybody can be doing something. So
Yeah. And what kind of vehicle do you drive with all these kids?
we have a Ford Transit passenger van, which holds 15 people. So, and I took some of the seats out so that we can, fit different, groceries or whatever. And then my wife, she drives a Jeep Wagoneer, and so she's able to hold like all the kids with the oldest in the front, and get them around town for right now. But once number 8 comes, it'll be a challenge. So we'll see.
Man, what what's the farthest you've gone in that big transporter?
Uh, Probably 8 hours away, so maybe like 400 miles or
And
so.
where'd you stay when you got there?
Well, like an Airbnb, we went
Okay.
to Destin,
Oh yeah.
Florida.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we got an
Okay.
Airbnb just
These
there.
might
So,
seem like silly questions, but I've only got
oh yeah,
4.
we don't stay in hotels. We stay in an Airbnb. We bring our own food and we cook. Like we'll go out to eat like once or twice maybe. And
What a headache to
I know
go.
where I know where all the deals are. Like I know how like we can go to Waffle House and we can get out of there for I think $60 now.
Oh
So
wow, that's great.
yeah, so I figure out kind of how to order different things and be able. I'm like Rain Man over there trying to figure out like how to get out of there for the cheapest way possible. So
And I guess you've accustomed them to they don't have a vote on where you're going to go eat because that would be a headache.
oh yeah, no, it's what do you want, and then like if that place has it, we'll accommodate the best we can. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of times we tell them like, no, this is what you're getting. Like Waffle House, it's like kind of the tradition is whoever was most well behaved, they get the waffle. Like because we get like the All-Star special. And it's like if you're well behaved, you can have one of the waffles, but if you weren't well behaved, you're getting just eggs. So
Actually, in that case, I would be not well behaved because I want the lower carb, healthier option.
yeah. And I just eat the leftovers, so that's what.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure there's plenty. It adds up.
Yeah,
I remember giving up on asking kids for a vote. I used to
yeah.
drive around. We're going to eat somewhere where there's a lot of restaurants, and I'd start asking. And all four kids wanted something different, and all of them were upset. And then
Yeah,
ultimately, they were upset with me, not with each
yeah.
other because they didn't figure it out. It's because me, I chose the place. One would be happy, and three would be upset. And I remember the day I looked at my wife and I said, I'm going to decide every single time and we'll figure it out. And then the fight stopped. The argument stopped. Everything was
Hmm.
great. So I think
Yeah.
you're doing it
Yeah.
good.
The only time you get to pick the place is on your birthday. That's
Oh,
how we
that's
do it.
fair. That's super
Yeah.
fair. Yeah. And
Yeah.
everybody
Your
knows they
birthday,
get a
we'll
turn.
let you pick where we eat. And, typically, I don't know. My kids are, for the most part, are pretty easygoing. So they're not like wanting anything crazy. So we just, we'll go out to eat. So,
It's what you accustom them to,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I talk to a lot of parents and they say that their kids are ungrateful, they're demanding, they're bad attitude, all these things. I don't know how we let that happen. We just nip it in the butt early on and don't let that
Hmm. Yeah.
happen. Especially for you, you have to do that. That's a lot of personalities. It's a lot of desires in all the directions. When I think about you, I think, what is he going to do when they're all like, or the first ones are really deep into their teen years, and then you got a bunch of teens. That's going to be a story. That's going to be a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. You're in, 8 years. Luckily I probably need to stop saying it because like she's gonna get a complex. But my oldest daughter is just, I mean, phenomenal. Like I couldn't ask for a better daughter. She's just amazing. All my kids are amazing, but
She's
she
leading the way.
yeah, which is great. Like that she's able to really set a good path. My next daughter is just brilliant. Like I mean, is gonna whatever she decides to do, she'll be able to do it. Like she just is just very intelligent. Figures things out. You're just like I'm just shocked like how she figures things out, and just remembers things really well. My next daughter, she's got special needs, so kind of just amazing in her own way. Where like doesn't meet a stranger, like loves hugs, like loves just doing all it, like just caring for like, but is very emotionally intelligent, which is phenomenal because. She'll just, know if you're sad or if you're upset and like ask you about it and be like, "Are you okay? Like, you
Mhm.
look upset, or you look sad. Like, what's wrong?" And we'll give you a hug and and then smile at you and you're just like, "Okay, everything's better." It's like, um, so yeah, I mean, my they're all amazing, but like it helps to have our oldest that's like kind of paving a really good way, and
Yeah.
it was a great learning opportunity because like we were able to send her like over to our neighbor's house to play for a few hours and. Um, I tell my next oldest is lying and stealing. I said like, hey, like I can't trust you if you're not in my sight. So I'm not gonna let you go to friends' houses or go to these things if unless I can be there or unless mommy can be there. So I use that as an example. I was like Poppy has my trust. So Poppy can go, hang out with her friends, but you can't. So like if you want to
Got to
start
earn it.
earning that trust back, here I lay it out for him like here's how you can earn trust back. Like, doing what you say you're gonna do. Like if mommy and daddy tell you something, you do it. Like if, just like eating your lunch, just whatever it is. Like if you don't finish your lunch, you come tell us like, hey, I didn't finish my lunch today. Like, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Um and so, I try to give her a map. And then like when she doesn't, when she goes off that map, it's like, hey, remember when I told you this? Like this is like what, we have a saying like lying breaks trust and trust is built on relationships. And so if you're breaking trust, you're breaking your relationship.
Yep.
And so anyway, so she's gonna hear that 100 billion times. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully
One day
yeah.
it'll click. We've had to do some extreme measures. I've only had to do this with my boys. Um, and it's where they took it so far with behavior, whether it's fighting and punching each other and like really aggressive, like doing bad stuff when they're kids, kids stuff. But we took a strong approach, and it was, you know what? You don't deserve that mattress.
Mm,
There's a carpet on your floor. Tonight, you're going to sleep on that carpet. And
yeah.
sleep on the carpet because a civil human being doesn't deserve, doesn't punch people and doesn't fight and doesn't do these things. Don't do those things, or
Hmm.
whatever it was, stealing or whatever they've done. And man, did that for us. That had a good, you wake up in the morning. Now they don't have the same body pains we would if we sat laid on a carpet all night,
Yeah.
but they feel it. And in the morning you
Hmm.
can have a good talk. And for us, it's worked where we say, all right, you want to earn that back. I want to see how you
Yeah.
behave today. You don't fight, you don't steal, you don't do these things. And all of a sudden, man, we can fix them up a little bit.
Yeah.
So maybe there's someone out there who's interested in being a foster parent. Maybe they want to adopt someone, or maybe they can't do either of those for whatever reason, or they think they can't, but they want to help the system. What is something that someone can do? How do you help in this world?
Man, I mean, like as far as like foster care, like we need foster families, because like there's the statistic is there's less than 200,000 foster homes, and there we talked about there being 391,000 kids, right? So that's 2 kids per home. But what that number doesn't reflect is that like I'm a certified foster home, but I have 7 kids, about to have 8. So technically, I shouldn't have any more kids in my home. So that's one less home. And there's multiple homes that are like that. That like we have friends that have 14 kids in their house right now.
Wow.
Like you think I'm, phenomenal. I'm comparing myself to them. I'm like, gee, they like, we don't got as bad as them. Like
Yeah.
um it's it's just it's one of those things that like the numbers don't always reflect exactly what's going on. So foster home, like loving, like caring foster homes is number one need. Um, and if you, I'll be direct because remember we talked about being clear is kind, right?
Yep.
Like if you're unwilling to be a foster parent, it's not that you can't. If you're unwilling to do it, because we can all do it. We all have the ability, we all have the means, like we all have a way to make it work, right? It might take some sacrifices, it might not be fun, it might be a struggle. But if you're unwilling to do it, one of the best things would be is just to find some local foster parents around you and just like buy them some tickets to the amusement park that they probably can't really always go to, or like you see one out eating, buy their meal, just try to help them out, try to bless them in a way that they're not gonna, foster parents aren't gonna ask for help. It's the nature of why we do what we do. Um, we struggle, like just our personality types, we struggle asking for help. And so sometimes you just got to kind of know what they need. I mean, if you're willing to like pay for them to have a babysitter come over so they can have a date night, so they can just be alone, just, mom and dad for a few hours, like I can't, or if you are able to keep the kids even for a night for them, like,
So if I don't know any foster families other than you and you live far away and I wanted to help like that, how do we find them? Would they accept a message on a Facebook group? How do you get
yeah,
hold
yeah. I
of
mean,
them?
I think just reaching out and like probably just opening up those conversations, just like with people, just like, hey, like, do you know anybody that fosters? Like, probably somebody knows somebody.
Sure.
And then if you can get a direct contact, that'll help you like open up some channels. You can reach out to just like DCFS in general, like or whatever it is for the Child Protective Services in your local area. If you type in Child Protective Services, something will come up and you'll be able to like, maybe just make a phone call and just like, hey, just, I don't know if I want to be a foster parent, but I would like to help out in some way. What organizations are helping out foster
Yeah.
care? And then get in contact with some organizations that are helping foster care. And then they'll either, tell you a way that you can help, or they'll get you in contact with somebody that can for sure. Like the nonprofit that my wife works for is called Unite. And so like, if somebody were to ask like, what can I do? I'd connect them with Unite Ministries and just tell them like, hey, like they have huge needs. Like, you can, get in contact with them and they'll let you know what things you can do. And so that would get you in contact with foster parents. Like we have things called like, and you might just, search for it and just see if there's something that comes up because we have a foster closet. And so it's an amazing ministry where people, donate things or buy things for the closet. And then like when Josh Cox gets a call at 5 p.m., hey, do you want a, 3-month old infant boy? If I say yes, but I don't have a crib, I can call up the foster closet and be like, hey, do y'all have a crib that I could have, for
Yeah.
this placement? and they're like, "Oh yeah, we got it." And then like I can go pick up that crib. I can have it set up by the time that kid gets, that baby gets there, and then that baby has a crib to sleep in,
Yeah.
because it's not like you get 9 months to prepare. Like it's,
Yeah.
you get a few hours to kind of get your ducks in a row. So
Wow. So that's good. There are some ways that, there's some support out there, but
yeah,
those support systems could probably use our support,
yeah.
helping them out, donating things maybe, and helping
Hmm.
out those foster families. All right. I think you've done a great deed, Josh, because you've informed me, you've informed our listeners of what you do, and that hopefully inspires one person, hopefully
Hmm.
more, to
Yeah.
go and see how they can help out. And I think this would be a blessing for a kid. And I always think, and we talk about this sort of stuff in the brotherhood, that if we are working on ourselves, becoming the best version of ourselves, that has an effect down generationally, right? Because if
Hmm.
someone has a horrible grandfather, then they could be having some effects negatively. But if they have a great grandfather that was
Hmm.
so amazing, and that means the dad was good, the grandkids were good. What you're doing is phenomenal. What these foster parents are doing and adopting, because those kids would have had a horrible life, right? That's why you did
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You've changed the course of six lives that are
Yeah.
eventually going to have six families, and those would have been bad families with all those
Hmm.
new set of problems. They would have continued, and you've kind of given them a tremendous chance, and that helps make our planet better. Right?
Yeah.
You're leaving it better than you left it, especially with what you could do because you've done a lot.
Hmm.
So congratulations to you and Claire, man. I thank you for what you guys are doing and for helping spread this word. Thanks a
Yeah.
lot,
I
Josh.
appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.